In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can create these trendy cement style vessels, all made from scratch. So stick around, that's coming up next.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Art with J. Monteith. This week I'm really excited. I'm going to be sharing with you how you can create from scratch using your own molds from plastic items just found around your home in order to create these concrete cast style containers. I've made 5 this week. Each one is different, all made from scratch, and I'm going to be sharing with you how I created these individually. Each one is a slightly different technique, using slightly different containers. And as you can see here, they're all finished with either a stencil, and then I've used some acrylic paint as well as some alcohol inks from the Jacquard line, the Pinata, metallic gold, and copper. So without further ado, let's get started, and I'll be sharing with you all the things that you need in order to create this week's project. So the items that you'll be needing for this week's project, I have laid out here on the table, with exception to, of course, the concrete itself. We'll get to that in a moment. But the things that you'll need, you can find in your house in most cases. If not, then these are containers and products that have all been purchased from Walmart. So they're really easy to find. If you don't have them at home, you can go to the store and grab them. We're going to be making 5 different styles of containers, and I'll just go through each one so you can see exactly what you need. You need some Tupperware bowls. I picked these up, obviously, as I mentioned, at Walmart, and I had 5 of these in a batch, 5 containers for $5. So I'm using a couple of those from that batch. I have one larger size bowl and then a smaller one that's going to inset within the bowl itself. So this will be our first vessel made from these 2 containers. So that's the first one. The second one is just an empty guacamole container that I also picked up from Walmart in the food section, as well as an empty vitamin bottle. So I'm going to be using these 2 items for my second vessel. So I have those. My third one is an empty container. I think this was actually a dip container. And I'm going to be using, again, Mainstays brand candle holders, and those are going to be sitting inside this particular vessel. This is actually going to be used so that we can use candles inset for this particular container. So that's number 3. Number 4 is I'm using a juice or an empty juice container. I actually have 2 that I'm going to be using. A slightly different container for that one, but I liked the style and the shape of this particular bottle. So this is the one we're going to be using also from Walmart, and then a wax candle that will be setting in here like so, and that will be our 4th. And then our last one is sort of a test run. I haven't tried this. It's just something that I thought I'm going to try mixing concrete and resin and see what kind of effect we can achieve with these 2 particular containers. So this is just a seasoned breadcrumb empty container, and then another one of those plastic juice bottles that we'll use in there. So there's our 5th one. So we'll have all different styles of concrete containers, and then once we're finished with those and we want to pretty them up a little bit, then I'm going to be using some Krylon gold plate metallic spray. That'll make them look really pretty, and I'll be spraying that over a couple of different stencils that I also picked up at Walmart. We'll be needing some tape that we can adhere those down or just hold them down onto the vessel while we spray that. So all of this stuff, as I mentioned, you can pick up at Walmart. I will also have all of these items listed in the description box below, and you can also check out my shop should you choose to purchase anything online. Okay, so let's clear all of this from the table and let's get started with the project. So I have my other container that I purchased from Walmart, and I'm using this one just for mixing my sand mix. So again, you need sand mix really over concrete powder mix, only because sand mix does not contain stones, whereas concrete does, and you want to have a nice smooth finish. So I actually have 3 cups of sand mix in here, and I'm just kind of making this up as I go. So we'll see how much water we want to put in here. We don't want a soupy consistency. We want a kind of like a more of a porridgey consistency, porridge style look to it. And I just have a cup of water here that I'm just going to be adding to, and I'm going to be using a popsicle stick to mix this with. Now, if you want this to set a little faster and you're in a cold environment as well, then you can use warmer water that will help set it a little bit faster. So I'm just going to add a little bit at a time. So I'm just using actually a container from my Magic Bullet, and I'm going to be mixing this. Now, just be careful, it is a bit initially powdery when you pull it out of the bag, and you want to do it in your garage or outside where it's well ventilated, so you're not getting all of the dust particles in and around yourself and your face and in your home. So you can always wear a mask as well, just if you want to take extra safety precaution. So once you get going, then it's okay. So let's just mix this up and see what we get. Okay, that's probably good there. I don't think I want to add any more water to that. It's just enough so that it's liquid enough that I can pour it in and set my other item into the container, and we should be fine. One of the key things that is necessary, I think, in order for your mold to come out fairly easily is to use oil. You can use WD-40, but the regular oil, in this case I'm just using avocado oil. You can use olive oil, you can use really whatever you want. But if you just brush these all over your containers or your molds, then it's just going to help with releasing it that much more easily than if you don't. So you don't have to take this additional step, but I would. It's just going to make your life a little bit easier. So I'm just going to finish oiling the rest of these containers, and then we'll be ready to pour our concrete into our containers. All right, all of my containers have been brushed over with oil. I even brushed some oil over the wax candle. I'm not sure if it was necessary, but it has been done. So I'm going to move these over to the side, and we'll start off with the bowl here. And I'm just going to scoop it in. It's just easier than actually pouring it in. And then you just want to kind of, like you're actually baking and you're just flattening it out to get the air bubbles out and just to flatten it out. And then we're just going to sit that one like so. And now I'm going to get a spoon and just place it around the sides here. And we can clean the edges once it gets to the top. So you want to make sure that you've got a little bit of a weight there. You don't want to push it all the way down to the bottom, otherwise you won't have a base. So I'm going to get a weight here and put some weights or stones in this one. All right, I ended up putting some water in this bowl just to weigh it down. It was just easier than trying to run out and find rocks at this time. So that one is done. I'm just going to move it over to the side. And I've mixed up more sand mix and water. I just went out into the garage and did it. So I just eyeballed it again just so that I get that kind of porridge-like consistency, and I can move on to my next container. So I think I'm just going to do this one here. And this one I can just pour a little bit in right away. You actually need more sand mix than what you think. So just keep that in mind when you do mix up a batch. You need quite a bit. Okay, let's just... All right, that one's done. I think that one's going to hopefully come out easily. I think that one's going to be nice. And we'll do this one next. Probably going to have to go out again and mix even more. All right, find something to weigh this one down with. There is our third one there, off to the side. And now I'm going to do this one here. So you can see this is a really messy job, so just make sure you have all of your countertops or whatever you're working on covered well. Oh, there goes my spoon. All right, I'm just finishing up my last vessel, and as you can see here, this one I put the candle in and I decided to just cut off the end and just make it flat and then put over a piece of green painter's tape just to hold it down, because otherwise, as I mentioned, everything just floats to the top. I'm going to leave it for 24 hours and then I'm going to come back and check them and then try and then take off the molds. So we'll see how things turn out. We'll come back in 24 hours and we'll go from there. All right, I have actually left these now for several days. I started these on a Wednesday. I came back on Thursday, about 24 hours later, and decided that I wanted to leave it just a bit longer and actually went away for the weekend. So today is Monday, and so essentially these have been sitting here for 3 days at least. And the thing with sand mix is you really do want to leave it for at least 24 hours, and if you can, 36, because you want the mix to fully cure. If you try and take it out sooner, then sometimes it will crack. So you really want to avoid that. All right, so I'm actually ready now to take off my containers. I'm fairly excited. I know some are going to come off a little more easily than the others. So I do have an X-Acto knife just to help me with part of the molds here. And then I may even need to take extra steps with these. So we'll see what happens. But this one is going to be the easiest. And I've actually poured out the water that was holding down the containers in just another bowl. And I'm going to actually remove these containers here. And as you can see, this one was already pulling away. And we're just going to now lift these out and see what we get. I'm just going to flip it over and see what we get. All right, there's that one. And I think what we'll do is we'll sand these down. I have a little mini sander that I'm going to just tidy this up so it's nice and smooth. But there is the first one. And see, now you can just fit in your candles there, or whatever you want to sit in there. You could even use those battery operated ones also. So there's the first mold. Over to the side. This one. Wow, it comes out really easily on that one. Woohoo! And there is our bowl. It turned out quite well. And again, we'll tidy that up, sand it down. Oh, I like that one. Now, I know these ones are going to be a lot more difficult. Probably bit off a little bit more than I can chew when it comes to the molds here, but we'll see what happens. I think I'll start with this one. All right, a little bit of coaxing, and we finally got it out. Oh, that one's cute too. Had to work for that one, but it turned out quite nicely too. Yay, excited. Okay, move that one off to the side. On to the next. Wow, that's really easy to remove. Okay, so this is a good one. Using these types of containers actually with the cardboard liner. Really good choice, but we'll see how I can get out the middle part. But so far, I like the way this one is going also. Just remember to always take safety precautions. There might be some sand mix flying around, so perhaps put on some eye protection. And some gloves too if you're concerned about the X-Acto knife. Yay, finally. Another one we had to work hard at, but the end result is pretty good. Once all of these are sanded down and we add our embellishments or our gold metallic finish and whatever other color we want to add, it's going to look really, really good. So on to the final one, the hardest one of all, and I just know it. I may even have to take a drill bit here to get this one how I want it, but we'll see how we do. Okay, I've moved on to using an actual utility knife. It's going to be a lot better than using an X-Acto knife. And again, just remember to please be careful considering your safety. All right. All right, so I've taken the next option of actually using a drill with a drill bit on so I can just break up the candle. That's it. I might just shine a flashlight down there just to make sure it's all out, but there's just a few pieces left, and then we can move on to sanding these and moving on to painting them. So I'm just going to clean up this area, come back, and we'll start the sanding process. All right, so I've cleaned everything off, the debris is moved over, and I'm going to move on to some sanding. Just remember that this is very dusty, so if you can work outside, then do so. If not, and make sure you're in a well-ventilated area, and just wear a mask for extra safety. Type strips. So I've got here an 80, and then I also have a 120, I believe here. Yes, I do. So I'm just going to start just sanding a few pieces down here, and just to smooth it out and get the look that I want here before we move on to the next phase of finishing with our paint. So I'll continue with all of the remaining pieces, sanding them down just so I get a nice smooth finish, and I'll come back and we'll start the next and final step. All right, I have finished sanding all of my concrete planters or items here, and now we're moving on to the final phase of decorating them. This is probably going to be the most fun. You've put in all of the hard work, and now you can decorate them how you like. So I'm going to be using the stencil that I mentioned and showed you earlier. This is one that I picked up from Walmart. Very simple designs on here. I think those will look really good on these items here, and I'm going to be using the Krylon 18 karat gold plate metallic spray. I think this will look great too. Now, if you don't want to use the spray, there are other products that you can use, such as Golden. They have a really nice iridescent gold acrylic paint. I really like this one. It has a great tone and a great sheen of gold color. So that is an option for you that you can use with a sponge brush. And I also like the matte black look on concrete products like these, so I'm going to be using a little bit of the golden black gesso. I really like this product also. Now we're going to be finishing these with felt bottom as well, so that we can place them on countertops within our home, and it's not going to ruin any surfaces. So we'll do that at the very end. Also, if you're going to be creating planters or vessels that you want to put outside, then you can finish with a concrete sealer. I'm not going to be doing that in this particular video because everything I'm doing is remaining indoors. However, you can take that extra step and finish brushing on concrete sealer, and then you'll be able to use your items outside. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm also going to spray this particular stencil with the Krylon Easy Tack. I have some of this on hand, and it is good because it is easy tack, and it's meaning that it's repositionable. So it's not going to be a permanent adhesive to whatever you're putting it on, but it will help keep the stencil in place while we spray it. So I am going to give this a shot and see how it does. Give it a minute or two to just get a little bit tacky before I wrap it around. And then hopefully I'll have enough room for 2 more of the chevron pattern stripes going down here, and it'll look even. I'm basically eyeballing that one, so we'll see how it turns out. But I'm going to now take this outside and give it a spray. All right, I've sprayed this outside, and it actually dries very quickly to the touch. So I'm just going to remove the stencil right away and see how it looks. Oh, cool. So you can kind of see the chevron pattern there, and looks good. I'm going to now continue on, let this dry just a tad, and then I will move on to finishing the other 2 stripes that I think will probably fit perfectly there. So I just decided to take the black acrylic all the way to the top, and now I'm just kind of sanding the edges here just to give it that sort of worn kind of textured look. I kind of like that better than the way I had it just at the bottom. And then I just actually have a little bit of metallic alcohol ink, or you can use the gold acrylic. These are pigment based, the alcohol inks, so you can use these. They're not going to fade because they're pigment based. And I'm just pouring a little bit in here, and then I'm just dabbing on the top just to give it a bit of texture. And then I'm going to be sanding that down a bit too. It just gives it a little bit of extra dimension. All right, I decided to give this more of a old world, rustic, vintage kind of feel. So I've been putting on the black gesso, and then I've been rubbing it off, and I've now decided to add a bit of the alcohol ink in copper as well. And you can add white And this is the metallic copper, and I actually really like this product. Obviously, most of my work is alcohol ink on Yupo paper, but you can add this onto the concrete as well, and it works out quite nicely. And again, because these are the metallics, even the white is all pigment based. It's not going to fade on you because pigment based metallics and these alcohol inks are light fast. They're not going to fade on you because they are made out of particles. And I think I'm going to paint this one in the copper as well. And I've decided that I'm going to use washi tape just to section off my area. I'm going to do maybe the top part here in the copper just to give it a slightly different feel and look. So I'm going to paint this part up in the copper. And when you're using these metallics, you have to make sure that you shake it really well. There's a ball in there. So once you hear that moving around and you've mixed it well, then you know it's okay. Now you don't need much of this, and you want to, if you want to reactivate it, you can just add a bit of alcohol. So I'm just going to paint over this in the copper. Now for this one, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I might just paint where the circle was. Maybe I'll do this in metallic in here, maybe a gold or copper. So I will finish designing these ones with either a gold, metallic, or copper in here, and I'll see if I want to paint anything on the top here. All right, for my final look, I've now sanded everything down. I've got that kind of vintage coppery gold, and now I'm actually just slightly dripping over some gold. And you don't have to use the bottle. You can always use a little bit of a dropper. And I'm just going around creating that vein kind of gold effect on here. All of my 5 items have finally been finished. The very last thing though that I do need to add is just some protection for the bases of these so they don't ruin any surface. I'm just going to be using and cutting out some felt. This is self-adhering felt that I just picked up at a local arts and crafts store. So I'm going to be cutting that out and applying these to the base. But as you can see, these turned out really well. I'll show you the final reveal on a side view of all of these items, but I did end up adding some alcohol ink in this one in the center. That one turned out well. And of course I did end up painting this one. This was for our 2 candles. Just a little bit of a rustic finish on the top and some gold finish on each side. Here is the finished vintage rustic looking one with the gold alcohol ink on the side, and I added just a small plant or succulent in that one. I think that'll look really good. This one's going in my bathroom. And I did end up changing slightly this one. I added black back over the top, and then I repainted or resprayed the chevron pattern with gold over top of that. So it's a slightly different look to what was initially done on this one. And then finally, this particular vessel I really like. It's very simple. I love the shape. It's very modern, and I ended up doing a vein textural kind of finish by just dropping some alcohol ink gold over top of the copper. So I'm just going to finish that off with some twigs in here, and I'm going to set these in the places that I'd love to see them, and I will show you the final look. Well, there you have it, guys, the finished pieces from this week's project. If you enjoyed this video and you found value, then please give it a like and a share. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more art videos. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate your time as always. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys again very soon.